Welcome to the Encouragement for Work podcast with your host, Mark Griffin, founder and owner of In His Name HR. Each week, Mark interviews nationally known thought leaders from corporate America, higher education, churches, and ministries. His goal is to bring you great ideas that help engage your employees, shift your culture toward higher performance, and increase employee loyalty at the organization you lead. Each episode features an idea or process that's made a tremendous impact on employees and employers alike. Now sit back, relax, and listen in as he delivers encouragement today through this episode's special guest.
Well, hello, my name is Mark Griffin, and welcome to Encouragement for Work. Today we are so excited to have a good friend, Peter Greer, on our podcast. Peter Greer is the author, speaker, and president of and CEO of Hope International. I've known Peter for many years, and Peter has just absolutely provided us with wonderful encouragement around business's mission. However, what we're going to be talking about today on Encouragement for Work is leading with prayer. How do we bring prayer into the workplace? Whether you're a religious exempt employer or a Christian-owned business for-profit, there are ways to bring prayer into the workplace. So, Peter, I'd like to welcome you to our podcast. And if you tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself and your background, we would much appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mark. And great to have the conversation again with you. But yeah, so I work with Hope International, and we're an organization that invests in the dreams of families as we proclaim and live the gospel. And so we do that through microfinance institutions and savings groups. But really, it is this community-based model where we provide investment capital to entrepreneurs and have just been absolutely amazed at the creativity and resourcefulness of individuals around the world to take these amounts of capital and literally, sometimes it's buying seeds, planting them, and watching what grows. But it's been a great joy. So I've been with Hope International the last 20 years. Before that, lived internationally in Cambodia and in Rwanda and in Zimbabwe. Now live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania with my wife, Laurel, and our 4 kiddos. So that's the backdrop.
That's excellent, Peter. And again, welcome. I've always been so excited to follow your journey as you follow the Lord. Such incredible impact with business's mission, and now with your new book, Lead with Prayer. Let me ask you this. What led to you writing this book? It's a little unconventional, but I do think it fits in today's times. It's something that we talk about a lot with all of our clients. What really led you to write this book, Peter?
Yeah, so I guess there's 2 parts of that. Maybe the bigger picture question is, Peter, you're working with Hope International. What are you doing writing on the side? And I think the answer to that one is I just love learning. And a book process allows me to not be pulled shallow, but it allows me to focus on a topic, an area that I want to learn about, and allows me to have some incredible conversations with leaders that are further and farther along in their journey. And so I typically start each of the writing journeys with a question, something that I want to learn more about, something that candidly, I'm struggling with. So this one in particular really was when Ryan Skoog reached out and said, Peter, I'd love to write a book on prayer and the prayer practices of leaders and how to create cultures of prayer. And I said, Ryan, that sounds like an amazing book. I can't wait to read it. I'm ready to help you, but I am out. I am not participating in that one. And the reason is because when I look at prayer, I would not say that has been an area of strength. But I had this sense the next day, and craziest thing, Mark, was actually to take some time and pray about this.
Sure.
And just this incredible sense and really invitation of saying, don't miss the journey. And I am so glad that I joined Ryan and Cameron Dolittle also, and Jill Heisey. The 4 of us have been working on this, and it has been a truly transformative journey of prayer. It, more than any time in my life, more than any experience, growth, the journey, the opportunity to learn, and then put some new ideas into practice, it has had a profound impact on me, on the prayer journey that we're on, and on the culture of prayer at Hope International that we're trying to create too. So it's been an amazing journey, Mark. So grateful.
It's so exciting, and it's so delightful to talk to you about this today, because honestly, when we came up with the idea of Encouragement for Work for 2024, we wanted to leave negativity in the background. So many negative things happening worldwide in 2023. And we thought, hey, we're going to reach out to all these thought leaders across the United States like yourself. But I never really thought about prayer, and I should have. That should have been the first thing that I thought of is, hey, we need to pray about encouragement for work, and we need to get other people praying about encouragement for work. And maybe all these organizations that are going to be listening to our encouragement, they should be thinking about prayer as well. So it was very special to us when you responded back and your organization responded back and said, hey, let's lead with prayer. So I think it fits really well with our audience. A lot of our listeners are HR professionals, they're Christian business owners, they're also executives in corporate companies as well, privately held companies. So we have a variety of different listeners. Kind of walk me through how God touched you a little bit to talk about how this could fit into organizations and developing. I think the term a culture of prayer is fitting. How do you develop a culture of prayer within your organization? Because sadly, we both know there's many Christian nonprofits, ministries, and whatnot that don't actually lead with prayer either. This is a great wake-up call to people to get back on your knees and to cry out to the Lord. So if you could speak into that a little bit, Peter, that would be great.
You're exactly right. And, early on, we came across some research that's been done. And one of the studies found that only 16% of pastors report being really satisfied with their prayer life. So that's within the pastoral realm.
Sure.
And then there was this other foundation that ended up doing a research project and looking at the prayer practices of leaders and organizations. And the conclusion that the person who commissioned that study said, and I quote, he said, "This is the most disturbing report I have ever read." And the reality is there is room for improvement for all of us. But I think for a lot of times, it's like as our leadership and influence increase, statistically, for many of us, our prayerfulness decreases. And so what's the challenge when there is that gap between growing influence and actually having a less vibrant prayer life? And appreciated how Robert Clinton said this. He had one quote where he said, "In our life, the tendency is to rely on competency, one's ability to do things, rather than primarily on God." And that is, I think, true for a lot of us. We can do this work. We have the ability.
You're right. That sounds like what most people do, and especially men. We want to solve issues. We want to jump in. We want to turn the wrench. We want to fix things right away. And instead, the default should be, okay, God, what do you want us to do? What are you calling us to do? Not what we have in the flesh on what our fleshly desires are, but where is God ultimately leading us with that? And that's an area that you found out through your study that statistically, most people do that. They default to trying to solve the issue on their own.
That's exactly right. Yep, exactly right. And I think inevitably that leads to one of two things. It leads to either frustration, like when we try to do it in our own strength, like, we can't do it in terms of or our vision is way too small. If we can do it in our own strength, we are having a way too small vision that we are going after. So I just echo, it resonated with the disciple that came to Jesus and said, "Lord, teach us to pray."
Sure.
And I think really that's really what we asked in this process. Lord, teach us how to pray in a new way, in a deeper way, in a way that we never have before. And that really was the journey that we were on.
It's a wonderful story. So let's talk a little bit about first Christian colleges, ministries, churches, religious exempt employers. How could they take this book and use it? I'm thinking of like study groups, those types of things. Where have you seen success in the workplace that the book could fit nicely within organizations?
Yeah, so we are just launching this. So I'm excited to see what happens on that. But the book is really written and designed not to be an exercise in greater understanding, but it actually is designed to be tools of practice. So every chapter at the end of it has tools to use in this. And I can just say, like, that's been my favorite part of the book, writing process, is writing with these friends and then putting these ideas into practice with the four of us, but then also exploring with Hope International, how do we do that? And again, not everything is going to stick.
No, it's not. So as the reader goes through the book, they're learning statistics, they're learning information, but most importantly, they're learning how to get into a faithful prayer life.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the goal is not just learning more information about prayer or to talk more about prayer, but to actually pray more and to move from that duty to delight, to actually find delight individually and corporately at this incredible mystery that we get to be in relationship with the God of the universe. And I mean, that just has been our journey, moving from like, oh, I feel like I should pray to I can't wait. I can't believe we have this privilege of prayer and engaging much more fully in that.
Exactly. So, as you were writing the book, what different styles did you discover that people have? Because I don't think, around prayer life, everybody's different. Everybody comes from a different religious background. They were brought up differently. Some people aren't comfortable openly sharing prayers out with groups. I've been in life groups where certain people aren't comfortable. They've been raised in a culture where they didn't, pray out loud. So you have all these different ways of praying and having God reveal things to you. What are some of the different ways that you've discovered that people find that helps them bring clarity? Because I recently had a blessing of being out and away from social media and technology for multiple days. And I really felt like over a sustained period of time, the further I got away from the distractions of social media, the news, texting, those types of things, I became more peaceful. I became more like I felt closer to God and I could have better conversation with God. Are these some trends and some things that you've seen in your research that are hurting prayer? And what are some best practices for people?
No, well said. Yeah, completely. And so what are some of the barriers to prayer? Like one is what you said, distraction. If every moment is filled with scrolling and checking what's happening and the never-ending news cycle, we cannot get our soul calm in a place to engage in meaningful prayer. Distraction is a big deal, and I would just say, try it. See what happens if every day for the next 30 days, before you look at your newsfeed, before you look at your email, if you spend time, dedicated time in prayer, tell me if there is not more peace, more joy that you will experience throughout the day. So I think that's a very practical piece. Distraction is a big deal. And the other one is desperation. Like, again, we already talked about that. But if we think we can do it in our own strength, I've got what it takes to lead in my sphere. If there's not any desperation, then there is no vibrancy in prayer on that. So I think just even the way that we approach it, yeah, it matters a lot.
It does matter. And that's incredible insight. So, any further ideas as it relates to religious organizations as you move forward with the publication of your book?
Oh yeah, and again, so we have between Cameron, Ryan, and myself, we work in different spheres, different organizations. Jill and I work together here at Hope International, but there is a nonprofit place, and there also is a for-profit, and so for those of us that are working in a Christ-centered organization, there are certain things that we can do with great freedom that we do that, including allocating staff time. I really was moved. We spent some time with the International Justice Mission,
Yes.
and they had quantified how much time they spend in prayer. And they really believe that prayer matters. And what they are trying to do is impossible on their own. And so they quantified based on how much time they allocate to corporate prayer. And it's like $4.5 million when they did that.
That's an incredible metrics. What a beautiful metrics. And wow, I'm just blown away because that is something that we should be measuring. How often are we in the Word? How often are we praying? How often? It's just an incredible metric to follow. That's wonderful. Let's pivot a little bit to Christian-owned for-profit companies. My background, I've worked with many organizations across the United States. And they have religious freedom. And there are certain things that Christian owned for profit employers can do. And I always advocate, as an HR firm, we never want to do anything to offend anybody. We always want to present the gospel in a way that's meaningful, that's not offensive, because that's the way that we attract other people to Christ is through light, through positivity, rather than through condemnation and shame. So if you were to take this process, and I think it's going to fit nicely in a lot of different organizations across the United States, we work with organizations that have chaplains, for instance, which is totally legal, it's legit, And I've watched chaplains do amazing things with employees, prevent suicide, break drug addiction, pornography issues with employees, all types of issues that you're going to run into. I see chaplains standing in the gap, and it's a great blessing for employers that invest in that. But another way for employers to invest, we encourage to volunteer in the community, for instance, to take your gifts out to the community, to bless the community. But as you're presenting this topic, how's a great way that we could bless the employees of an organization with your book around bringing prayer into their lives and bringing prayer into the organization? Any thoughts?
Yeah, so again, that was the fun of the research, was learning from a wide variety of individuals. And I think about one individual's name was Andre Mann, and he talked about how even in his corporate career, he said, very rarely would I find someone that when they were going through a difficult time, and I would say, may I pray for you, that was not seen with, again, the respect and appreciated in that and opening up incredible doors. He had some other amazing stories in some global organizations that he was a part of, but this idea of invitation and may I pray for you, I think that's pretty powerful. And then we also heard these stories of some Fortune 500 companies that we were able to engage in some of the research and the fact of prayer groups that they were forming on that. And again, everything by invitation, gracious. And I just thought there's so many great examples, and it kind of blew our minds that there is far more ability to do this as long as it is done in a open-handed way, invitation, no force, no coercion, but this wonderful way of saying, hey, may we pray for you? And would you like to join us in that? So yeah, super encouraged by the way that people are living this out.
Peter, and that's been my experience as well. I've been in HR for well over 30 years. I've worked for secular for-profit companies, big names, big company names. And even when I was working in those organizations, much younger in my career, if there was somebody that was troubled and they just had a death, or they found out that a spouse had cancer, and I offered prayer to that person, I've never had anybody say, no, I'm offended. They want to be relieved, and they want to feel God's presence. So I think that's a very powerful point. It's not illegal to ask somebody if they would like prayer, but I think we make a mistake when we don't offer it. I think it's something that's very important. And I pray that through this message today, that our listeners become encouraged to stand up and help and encourage those around them with prayer. Peter, we just have a minute or two left in our broadcast. Would you like to add anything to our discussion today to encourage the listeners?
Yeah, no, I so appreciate that, Mark. And thanks so much for having the conversation. I guess the one thing that I would say is that everything that we tried to do with the book is to make it as applicable as possible. And so if anyone wants to have some free tools in terms of how would I live this out, you can go to leadwithprayer.com, and there's a bunch of free resources. I love how you said just the benefit of getting offline. We did these prayer cards, intentionally low tech. Yes, there is an app you can have to if you prefer that. But just all kinds of these tools, or if you've never created a rule of life for prayer, there's some examples of that, and ways, if you've never had a silent retreat, how would you structure that? Or how would you have a corporate time of prayer? So anyway, everything that we found, we wanted to make it as applicable and actionable, and you can get some of those free tools at leadwithprayer.com.
Thank you so much, Peter. You're so encouraging to our audience. Bless you. Bless Hope International. We'll be praying for your book, for its success, and we hope to have you back on the broadcast again real soon. God bless and take care, Peter. Bye-bye now.
Thanks so much, Mark.
This episode of Encouragement for Work has been brought to you by Job Shepherd. Post-COVID-19 recruitment has been unquestionably hard for employers, with many struggling to find quality employees in the aftermath. Religious exempt employers have had an especially difficult time. Welcome to Job Shepherd, a platform that will change all of this for you. Job Shepherd was created to meet the demand by Christian employers, including ministries, camps, churches, colleges, and Christian for-profit companies in their search for qualified job candidates. Now, for a limited time only, employers post a job for free. Job seekers, come join us. You are always free. Learn more at www.jobshepherd.com.